The night was cold and silent. The moon was half hidden behind thick clouds, and the wind carried the smell of wet soil. A poor farmer named Arjun walked slowly on the lonely path that cut through the forest. He had worked all day in the fields. His hands were rough and his feet were heavy. He wished only for a warm meal and some sleep. But tonight was not an ordinary night. Something was waiting for him, something that would change his life forever. As he walked, his old lantern shook in his hand, the weak flame dancing with every step. The shadows of the trees looked like long black arms reaching for him. He heard the sound of crickets, the hoot of an owl, and the distant bark of a dog. Nothing unusual for the countryside. But then, he froze. From the deep darkness ahead came a sound that made his heart skip. It was soft, almost like a cry. Not the cry of an animal, not the cry of a child, but something strange, almost painful, almost broken. Arjun stopped breathing for a moment. His first thought was to run, but curiosity was stronger than fear. He whispered to himself, "Who is crying here at this hour?" Slowly, he followed the sound. His lantern, shaking more and more, the cry grew louder as if someone was begging for help. Arjun's heart beat like a drum in his chest. Sweat formed on his forehead even though the night was cold. The narrow path led him to a small clearing. There, under a large banyan tree, he saw it. A huge old sack, tied with a thick rope, lay on the ground. The sack moved, as if something alive was trapped inside. Arjun's blood ran cold. For a moment he thought of ghosts, of spirits, of stories told by elders at the village fire. He almost turned back, but then he heard it again. A voice, soft and trembling, whispering, "Please." That one word stopped him. It was no ghost. It was no animal. It was someone begging. Arjun bent down, his hands shaking. He touched the sack, and it trembled from inside. "Who is there?" he asked in a low voice. No answer, only a faint whimper. Slowly, with a knife he carried for work, he cut the rope. His breath grew faster, the knot loosened, and the sack opened. What he saw made him fall back on the ground. Inside was not a child, not a villager, not even something he had seen before. It was a woman, but not like any woman he had ever known. Her skin shone faintly, like silver under the moon. Her hair, spread around her face, glowing softly like threads of light. Her eyes opened slowly, and they were not brown or black like human eyes. They glowed with a pale blue fire, deep and endless. She looked at him with fear, with sadness, and with something he could not name. Arjun's mouth went dry. He whispered, "What are you?" The woman's lips trembled. She tried to speak. Her voice was weak, broken, yet full of feeling. "Please, don't send me back," she said. Then her head fell forward, her body weak as if she had no strength left. The farmer's lantern almost slipped from his hand. His mind was a storm. Was she a spirit, a goddess, a demon, or something else? He could not understand, but he knew one thing. She was alive and she was afraid. And she had begged him with a voice full of pain, "Don't send me back." Arjun looked around. The night seemed heavier, the silence deeper. The forest was no longer just a forest, it felt like it was watching him. He knew he should run to the village, tell someone, maybe call for help. But something inside him stopped him. If he told the villagers, they would call her cursed. They would harm her. And if he left her here, whoever had thrown her in the sack would return. She would die. Arjun's heart twisted. He had nothing. He was poor, hungry, forgotten by most people. But in this moment, he felt something powerful. He felt the weight of a choice. He touched her cold silver hand. The woman opened her eyes just a little. Her gaze met his, and in that moment, he felt something he had never felt before. It was not fear. It was not pity. It was something deeper. A strange bond. A strange pull. The night seemed to whisper to him, "This is no ordinary woman. This is no ordinary night. Your life will never be the same again." Arjun lifted her carefully. From the sack she was light, too light, like she was made of air and light itself. Her head rested against his shoulder and she whispered again, don't send me back." Her voice was weak, almost lost, but it cut through his soul. Arjun held her tighter. He did not know who she was, he did not know where she came from, but he knew one thing: he could not leave her. And so, in the silence of the strange night, a poor farmer carried home a secret from the stars, a secret that would soon bring danger, fear, and a story the world had never heard. The night was still, heavy when Arjun reached his small hut at the edge of the village. He pushed the wooden door open with his shoulder, holding the strange woman carefully in his arms. Inside, the room was dark and smelled of earth and smoke. The only light came from the dying fire in the corner. He laid her gently on a mat, his hands trembling, his mind still lost in shock. For a moment he just stared at her. She was unlike anything he had ever seen. Her skin glowed softly, like moonlight resting on silver water. Her hair spread around her head, shining faintly as if woven from threads of the night sky, and her face, though weak and pale, carried both beauty and sorrow that no human words could describe. Arjun whispered to himself, "Who are you?" The woman's chest rose and fell, slowly, her breath shallow. He wondered if she would even survive till morning. He rushed to fetch water in a clay cup, his hands spilling half of it in fear. He held it to her lips, and she drank, her throat moving gently, her glowing eyes half open. Her voice came like a broken song, weak but filled with emotion. "Thank you. Please don't send me back." The same words again, and they pierced his heart. Arjun wanted to ask 100 questions. Send you back where? Who hurt you? Why were you locked in a sack? But her eyes closed, her body too weak for answers. He covered her with his old blanket. Though it smelled of dust and fieldwork, he had nothing else, but he wanted her to feel safe. Sitting beside her, he could not stop staring. Every small detail of her presence was strange. Her hands had faint patterns glowing under the skin, as if tiny rivers of light moved inside her veins. Her skin was warm in some places and cold in others. It was as if she carried both life and emptiness inside her. Arjun's mind was a storm. Was she a goddess sent to test him? Was she a cursed spirit trapped in a woman's form? Or was she something beyond human? Something from the heavens above? He remembered her words again. "Please, don't send me back." Those words were not the words of a spirit, not of a goddess. They were the words of someone afraid, someone in pain, someone who wanted to live. The farmer sat awake for hours. Sometimes he heard her whisper in her sleep, words he did not understand. The sounds were soft, flowing, like a language of wind and water. Then suddenly, she would tremble and cry out in fear. Arjun touched her shoulder gently, and she calmed, as if his presence gave her peace. When morning light finally broke through the cracks of his hut, the woman stirred, her glowing eyes opening slowly. She looked around, her gaze confused, frightened. Then her eyes rested on him, and for a moment her fear softened. Arjun smiled nervously, trying to speak in a calm voice. "You are safe here," he said. "No one will hurt you." She studied him, as if trying to decide whether his words were true. Then she whispered, "You are kind." Her voice was fragile, like a leaf in the wind. Arjun felt something stir in his chest, something he had not felt in many years. He had been alone for so long, forgotten by most. But here, in this moment, someone had called him kind. As the day passed, he gave her food, just some rice and lentils, the only food he had. She tasted it slowly, as if each bite was new. Her eyes filled with tears, she whispered, "Warm, safe. Thank you." Arjun had never seen anyone cry over simple food. It broke his heart, and at the same time it made him feel important. As if, for the first time in his life, what little he had truly mattered. When her strength returned a little, she began to speak more. In slow, broken words, she told him pieces of her story. Not from here," she said, pointing upward to the sky. Her glowing eyes filled with pain as she tried to remember. Taken, locked. They hurt me." Her voice cracked, her hands shook. She could not say more. but the fear in her eyes was clear. Arjun listened, his heart pounding. She was not from this world, not from the village, not even from the earth. He felt both wonder and terror, but when he looked at her trembling hands, he felt only one thing: responsibility. This woman, whatever she was, needed him, and he knew he could not abandon her. As evening fell, she whispered again, "If they find me, your world will burn." Arjun's body went cold. Who were they, and why did they want her back? He looked out at the forest, where the shadows grew long and dark. For the first time in his life, he feared not for himself, but for the stranger who had fallen into his care. That night, as he sat by the fire, watching her sleep under his thin blanket, Arjun understood one truth. This woman was not just a mystery, not just a burden. She was a key to something far greater. And her plea, "Please don't send me back," was not just about her survival. It was a warning that soon the quiet life of a poor farmer would turn into a storm. The second night came quickly, the sky heavy with stars, the air carrying the sound of crickets and the smell of damp earth. Inside the farmer's hut, the fire burned low, casting long shadows across the walls. Arjun sat close to the strange woman, his eyes never leaving her face. She looked stronger than before, her skin glowing faintly in the dark, but her eyes still carried deep fear. For a long time they sat in silence. Finally, Arjun asked softly, "Why were you in that sack? Who did this to you?" The woman closed her eyes, her body trembling, as if the memories were knives cutting her from the inside. After a long pause, she whispered, "They caught me. I ran away. They punished me." Her voice was thin, but the pain behind it was sharp. Arjun leaned forward, his curiosity stronger than his fear. "Who are they?" he asked. The woman's glowing eyes filled. With tears, she shook her head. "Hunters, cruel. They not from your village, not from your world." Arjun's heart skipped. Not from his world. The thought was impossible, and yet the proof was before his eyes. Her glowing skin, her strange language, her broken words about the sky. She was not human. She was from somewhere far beyond, but even then she was just like him. Afraid, hungry, and desperate to live. She raised her hand slowly and placed it on her chest. From beneath her skin a faint light pulsed, like the beating of a second heart. Arjun gasped, his lantern shaking in his hand. "This," she whispered, "is life, is power. They want it, they take it, they use it for war." Her words were clumsy, but the meaning was clear enough. The people who had captured her were not just hunters. They were something worse. They had locked her in a sack, not to hide her, but to carry her away like stolen treasure. Arjun sat back, his thoughts a storm. He was only a poor farmer. What could he do against enemies who wanted this kind of power? Yet when he looked at her trembling hands, her pale lips, her glowing tears, he knew he could not abandon her. He had lived his whole life in silence, forgotten by others, but now fate had given him something extraordinary, something fragile and precious to protect. The woman looked at him again, her voice breaking. "If they find me, they destroy me. They destroy you, your people, your land." Arjun's throat went dry. Her words sounded like prophecy. He wanted to ask more, but her strength was fading. She fell back on the mat, whispering words in her strange tongue. The sound was soft, like the whisper of rivers, like the music of the wind. That night, Arjun dreamed strange dreams. He saw great ships flying through the stars, burning worlds with fire. He saw people screaming, running, falling, and he saw her, locked in chains, her glowing heart ripped away by cruel hands. He woke in a sweat, his chest heavy with dread. He looked at her sleeping form, curled under his thin blanket and his fists clenched. He would not let that dream become real. The next day, the village stirred with rumors. Fishermen had seen lights moving in the sky before dawn. Children spoke of strange shadows passing over the fields. Old men whispered that it was an omen, that something unnatural had come. Arjun's heart pounded with fear. He knew what those lights were. They are searching, he thought. They are coming closer. When he returned home, he found the woman sitting up, her eyes brighter. She pointed to the window, her face full of worry. They near, she whispered. Arjun's chest tightened. He closed the door, checked the cracks in the wall, made sure no light escaped. Don't fear, he told her, though he himself was full of fear. You are safe here. For the first time, she smiled faintly, though her smile was filled with sadness. You protect me, but you risk everything, she said. Arjun shook his head. I have little, but what I have, I will share. I will not let them hurt you. Her glowing eyes softened, and she whispered, kindness. Rare. The words sank into him, and though he was just a farmer, he felt stronger, like her presence had awakened something in him that had been sleeping all his life. As the sun set again, the woman spoke once more, her voice heavy with warning. They never stop. If they find me, they take your world too. Her words filled the hut with a silence heavier than stone. Arjun looked at her, then at the door, then at the darkening forest beyond. He realized the truth. This was no longer just her secret. It was his secret too, and secrets like this never stayed hidden for long. He took her hand gently, his voice firm, though his heart shook inside him. You are safe here with me, he said. No matter what comes, I will not let you go. The woman closed her glowing eyes, a single tear sliding down her silver cheek. And somewhere far above, beyond the clouds, beyond the stars, unseen hunters moved closer, searching for the secret that now lived in the hut of a poor farmer, a secret that could save or destroy the world. The nights grew longer for Arjun, and each hour he spent with the strange woman pulled him deeper into a world he could not explain. She was still weak, but her eyes carried a light that reached into him, a light that felt both human and not human at the same time. Every small movement she made, every word she whispered filled his hut with a kind of warmth he had never known. Arjun had lived most of his life alone. His parents were gone. He had no wife, no children, and his days passed with nothing but fields, dust, and silence. But now, when he returned from the fields, he found her waiting, her glowing eyes lifting toward him, her lips forming a faint smile, and that small smile made his tired body feel alive. At first, their words were few. She spoke broken human words, slow and heavy, while he listened with patience. When she could not explain, she used her hands, drawing shapes in the air, pointing to things around her. Arjun began to understand. Her little by little, he taught her simple words: water, rice, fire, sky, safe. She repeated them, sometimes clumsy, sometimes clear, and each time she tried, he laughed softly, not out of mockery, but out of joy, the joy of sharing, of building something between them. One evening, while the sun bled red across the horizon, she pointed at the glowing sky and whispered, "Home." Her voice carried both longing and sorrow. Arjun followed her gaze, but all he saw were clouds, birds, and endless light fading into night. To him it was only the sky, but to her it was a place of memories, maybe of pain, maybe of love. He wanted to ask, but the sadness in her eyes told him not to. Slowly, the hut became more than a shelter. It became a secret world for the two of them. She helped him in small ways, arranging his clay pots, cleaning the mat, even smiling as she tried to light the fire. Though she often failed, each failure brought a laugh from Arjun, each success a glow of pride in her eyes. It was simple, ordinary to him, but to her it seemed extraordinary, as if she was tasting human life for the first time. At night, when the crickets sang, she sometimes told him pieces of her story. Her words were broken, yet her feelings painted the missing parts. She spoke of chains of darkness, of voices commanding her to obey. She spoke of pain that tore through her glowing heart, of cold rooms where she was nothing but an object. But she also spoke of her escape, of running under strange skies, of hiding in fear. Arjun listened, his chest heavy with sorrow and anger. She was no goddess, no demon, no spirit. She was a prisoner who had tasted cruelty too deep for words. When her voice broke, Arjun's hands shook with helplessness. He wanted to protect her, to shield her from every shadow. And though he had nothing, no power, no wealth, no weapons, he gave her the only thing he had: kindness. Simple kindness. Food when she was hungry, water when she was thirsty, silence when she was afraid, and company when she felt alone. And slowly, that kindness grew into a bond. One night, when she woke from a nightmare, crying in her strange language, Arjun touched. Her hand, her glowing eyes met his, trembling with fear, and he whispered, "You are safe here." Her tears slowed, her breathing calmed, and she held his hand tightly, as if that single human touch was more powerful than any chain. That moment burned in his heart, and he realized something. This woman did not only need him, he also needed her. The days passed, and though the outside world grew more dangerous with rumors of strange lights in the sky and men asking questions in nearby villages, inside the hut, the bond grew stronger. When she smiled, he smiled. When she struggled to learn a word, he encouraged her. When she looked at the stars with tears in her eyes, he sat beside her in silence, sharing her sorrow without speaking. One evening, as rain tapped softly on the roof, she whispered a word he had not taught her: family. Arjun froze. She looked at him with a soft smile, repeating, "Family." His throat tightened, his eyes stung. No one had ever called him that, not in all his lonely years. In that moment, his heart broke and healed at the same time. He realized she was no longer just a secret, no longer just a stranger he had found in the forest. She was a part of his life, a part of him. But outside their fragile world, shadows were moving. Travelers spoke of men in dark clothes, carrying weapons, asking questions in every village. Fishermen whispered of fire falling from the sky at night. Children drew pictures of strange figures with glowing eyes. And though Arjun tried to hide it, he knew the truth. They were searching. They were close. One night, as the wind howled outside, the woman sat by the fire, her eyes glowing brighter than usual. She looked at him and said slowly, "If they find me, you hurt too." Her words were clear, sharper than before. Arjun's hands clenched, his voice firm. "Then I will make sure they never find you." She stared at him, silent for a moment, then leaned forward, resting her glowing forehead gently against his. It was not a kiss, not a touch of passion, but something deeper, a silent promise, a bond, made not with words but with trust. And in that quiet night, a poor farmer and an alien woman, so different yet so alike in pain and hope, became something unbreakable. A family born not of blood, but of kindness. A connection that would soon be tested by fire. The peace inside Arjun's hut was fragile, like a clay pot ready to break at the smallest touch. For days the strange woman had smiled more, had spoken more words, and her glowing eyes carried less fear. But outside, in the world beyond the fields and forests, whispers were spreading, and danger was moving closer with each breath. One morning, as Arjun walked to the village market, he noticed a group of men standing near the well. They were not villagers. Their clothes were black, heavy, and too clean for farmers. Their boots left deep marks in the wet soil, and their eyes scanned every corner as if hunting for something unseen. One of them held a strange device glowing faintly with red lights. Arjun's stomach tightened, his chest heavy with dread. He walked past them, head lowered, pretending to be just another poor farmer buying grain. But he could feel their eyes on him, sharp and cold. The villagers whispered to each other, strangers asking questions, searching for someone. Arjun's hands trembled as he carried his sack of rice back home. He did not need to ask who they were searching for. He already knew. When he reached his hut, the woman was waiting, her glowing eyes filled with worry. She had seen his face before he even spoke. "They hear," she whispered, her voice shaking. Arjun nodded, his jaw tight. "Yes, they are here." That night, he could not sleep. Every sound outside made him jump. The wind in the trees, the cry of an owl, the rustle of leaves. Each noise felt like footsteps, like men drawing closer to his secret. The woman sat near the fire, her hands pressed against her chest, the faint light of her second heart glowing through her skin. She whispered, "They never stop, they never forgive." Her words were like knives cutting deep into Arjun's heart. The next day, the strangers began moving from house to house in the village. They knocked on doors, their voices firm, demanding answers. "Have you seen anything unusual?" they asked. "Have you noticed strange lights, strange people, strange things?" The villagers shook their heads, but fear filled their eyes. The men searched barns, huts, and even the fields. They carried weapons no villager had ever seen, weapons that hummed with deadly power. Arjun stayed away, hiding in the fields until dark. When he returned, the woman grabbed his arm, her eyes wide. "They close, they search everywhere," she whispered. Arjun's mind raced. He had hidden her in his barn once, but now even the barns were being searched. How long could he keep her safe? How long before the hunters found her? That night she spoke more clearly than before, her broken words forming a warning. "If they find me, you die too. They burn your home, your village, your people." Arjun shook his head, his eyes fierce. "I will not let them take you." His words carried more courage than he felt, but he meant them, every one of them. She looked at him, her glowing eyes soft, and whispered, "Please, don't send me back." Her plea was the same as the first night, but now it carried more weight. Now it was not only about her survival, but about the fate of everyone around them. The next morning, the strangers came closer. They questioned Arjun directly, their eyes cold, their voices sharp. "You live alone," one of them said. "Have you seen anything unusual?" Arjun forced himself to stay calm, his voice steady. "No, only fields and soil, nothing else." The man stared at him for a long moment, then nodded slowly. But Arjun saw suspicion in his eyes, and his heart pounded like a drum. He returned to the hut and told the woman. Her face turned pale, her hands trembling. "They know," she whispered. "They feel me. They smell me. They come soon." Arjun looked around his small hut, his barn, his fields. He had no weapons, no soldiers, no walls. Yet he had something stronger than fear. He had a promise in his heart. He would protect her, no matter the cost. That night, the sky burned. With strange lights, red and blue streaks cut across the darkness, silent but terrifying. The villagers hid in their homes, whispering prayers. But Arjun stood outside, staring at the sky, his fists clenched. "They are searching from above." He thought, they will not stop until they find her. Inside the hut, the woman sat with her knees pulled close. Her glowing eyes reflecting the fire, she whispered, "I am danger. I bring death. But you still keep me. Why?" Arjun looked at her, his voice steady. "Because you are alive. Because you are afraid. Because you are not just a secret. You are my family now." Her eyes filled with tears, glowing brighter in the firelight. She reached for his hand, holding it tightly, as if his touch was her only anchor. Outside, the hunters drew closer, their boots crushing the soil, their weapons humming with deadly energy. The villagers watched in silence, afraid to speak, afraid to resist, and in the middle of it all, in a small hut at the edge of the village, a poor farmer prepared himself for a fight he could not win. But in his heart, he knew one truth. He would rather die protecting her than live knowing he betrayed her. The hunt had begun, and soon, the hunters would come to his door. The air in the village grew heavy with fear. Every day the strangers searched deeper, their black boots leaving scars on the earth, their strange weapons humming with quiet menace. Children no longer played in the fields. Women whispered in corners. Men avoided the eyes of the soldiers. It was as if the whole village was a prisoner without chains. Arjun felt the weight of every gaze. He knew some villagers suspected him. They saw him buying more food than before, saw him rushing home quickly at night, saw his nervous eyes when the soldiers passed. Rumors spread like fire on dry grass, and he knew it was only a matter of time before the hunters turned all their suspicion on him. One evening, when the sun melted into blood-red clouds, 2 soldiers came to his hut. They pushed the door open without asking, their eyes scanning every corner, their hands ready on their weapons. Arjun's heart thundered, but he stood firm. "You live alone," one of them said coldly. "Why do you need more rice than a single man can eat?" Arjun's throat went dry, but he forced his voice steady. "I work long in the fields, I eat much," he lied. The soldiers' eyes narrowed, but after a long silence they left, their boots heavy on the soil outside. Arjun closed the door, with shaking hands, sweat running down his face. Inside, the woman stepped out from the shadows, her glowing eyes wide with terror. "They almost see me," she whispered, her body trembling. Arjun pulled her close, whispering, "You are safe. They did not find you," but deep inside, he knew the truth. He could not hide her forever. That night, as rain pounded on the roof, the woman spoke again, her words clearer than ever before. "They will not stop. They will find me. And if they find me here, they kill you. They kill all." Arjun stared at the fire, his face hard. Her words were not only fear, they were truth. And with that truth came a terrible choice. He could hand her over. The soldiers would leave. The village would be safe. His life would return to silence. Or he could keep his promise, protect her, and risk everything. His life, his home, even his people. The weight of that decision pressed down on him like a mountain. The woman sat quietly, her glowing tears falling. "You saved me," she whispered. "But maybe you must let me go. To save yourself?" Arjun's chest burned with anger at her words. "No," he said firmly. "I will not give you to them." She looked at him with pain, shaking her head. "You don't understand. I am not only danger, I am the storm. If they take me, they use me, they destroy this world." Her words cut deep into him. It was no longer just about her life or his life. It was about the fate of everyone. If she was captured, the hunters would not stop at one village, one farmer. They would bring fire to the land, to the skies, to the whole earth. Arjun walked outside into the rain, the mud cold under his feet. He looked at the dark forest, at the fields he had tilled since childhood, at the distant lights of the village. Everything he knew, everything he loved, stood on the edge of destruction, and all because of one choice, his choice. He clenched his fists, his voice breaking as he whispered to the night, "What am I? A poor farmer, against the men from the stars." But then he thought of her eyes glowing with both fear and hope. He thought of her voice saying family, her hand holding his in the firelight. He thought of her tears as she tasted food, her laughter when she learned new words. She was not just a secret, not just an alien, not just a danger. She was a life, a soul, someone who had suffered and still begged for freedom, and he could not betray that. When he returned to the hut, he looked at her with steady eyes. "I will protect you," he said. "Even if I lose everything, I will protect you." Her glowing eyes widened, tears shining. She whispered, Why risk your world for me?" Arjun took her hand, his voice soft but strong. "Because you are not just from the stars. You are here now. You are with me. And that is enough." For a long moment, silence filled the hut, broken only by the sound of rain. Then she leaned forward, resting her head against his shoulder. Her glowing tears slid down his arm, warm and heavy, and he held her close. Not as a farmer protecting a stranger, but as a man protecting his family. Outside, the rain washed the earth. The soldiers marched closer, their voices sharp in the distance. The villagers hid in fear, but Arjun stood ready. He knew the choice was made. There was no turning back. If the hunters came, he would fight. Not with weapons, not with power, but with the courage of a man who had something to protect. The big choice was no longer a question. It was a promise written in his heart, a promise that would soon be tested by fire and blood. The night was darker than ever, the sky heavy with storm clouds, and the wind carried the scent of fear. The villagers locked their doors, whispering prayers, their hearts heavy with dread, for they knew the hunters had arrived, and this time they would not leave without finding what they sought. Arjun stood at the doorway of his small hut, his body tense, his fists clenched. Inside, the woman sat quietly, her glowing eyes filled with both fear and courage. She had told him again and again, "They come for me. If they take me, they destroy your world." And he had answered every time, "They will not take you." The first sound came like thunder, the heavy boots of soldiers crushing the earth. Their voices cut through the night, sharp and merciless. "Search every house, search every field, the subject is near." Torches burned, weapons glowed with strange red light. The village was no longer a home. It was a trap, a cage. Arjun looked at her one last time, his heart pounding like a drum. "You must hide," he whispered, but she shook her head. "No hiding now. They feel me, they smell me, they know I am here." Her glowing tears slid down her cheeks, but her voice carried strength. "If they take me, all ends. But if I fight, maybe you live." Arjun's throat burned, his chest heavy. "You are not alone," he said. "If you fight, I fight too." She looked at him in silence, then reached for his hand. In that simple touch, a bond stronger than any chain was sealed. The soldiers came closer, their boots echoing like war drums. They surrounded his farm, shadows of men moving in the torchlight. One of them shouted, "Farmer, open your door now." Arjun's heart thundered, but he stood firm. When he opened the door, his lantern cast a trembling light across the yard. The soldiers stared at him with cold eyes, weapons ready. "You hide something," one said. "Give it to us or your people will suffer." Arjun's body shook, but his voice did not. "There is nothing here but soil, fire, and a poor man's hunger," he said. The soldier stepped forward, raising his weapon, the red glow burning like fire, and then, from inside the hut, the woman stepped out. Her silver skin glowed under the storm clouds, her eyes burned. With blue fire, the soldiers froze for a moment, their weapons trembling in their hands. "There she is," one shouted. "Take her now." But before they could move, the woman raised her hands, and the air itself trembled. A wave of light burst from her chest, pushing the soldiers back. The ground shook, the torches flickered, the weapons cracked with sparks. Arjun shielded his eyes, the force of her power rattling his bones. When the light faded, the soldiers staggered, their faces filled with shock and rage. The leader stepped forward, his voice like iron. "You cannot win. You belong to us. You will come back, or we will burn this world." The woman's eyes blazed, her voice breaking but strong. "No, never again. I am free." The soldiers charged, their weapons firing beams of red light. Arjun grabbed a wooden staff, his only weapon, and swung it with desperate strength. He struck one soldier across the face, knocking him to the ground. Another aimed at him, but the woman raised her hand and a shield of light burst from her chest, blocking the attack. For the first time, Arjun and the woman fought side by side, farmer and alien, courage against cruelty. The battle raged across the farm. The earth cracked under the blasts, the air filled with smoke and fire. Villagers peeked from their doors, their eyes wide with fear and wonder. They had never seen such power, never imagined their quiet lives could hold such a storm. At the heart of the chaos, Arjun's body burned with exhaustion, his hands bleeding, his chest aching. But every time he fell, he rose again, because beside him she stood, her glowing light guiding him. The woman's power grew brighter with each attack, her voice ringing like thunder. "Please don't send me back," she cried, her words now a roar of defiance. At last, with one final burst of light, she unleashed everything inside her. The soldiers were thrown back like leaves in the wind, their weapons shattered, their torches dying. The leader stumbled, his voice filled with fury. "This is not the end. We will return," he shouted. Before vanishing into the night with the few who survived, silence fell, broken only by the sound of rain dripping from the broken roof. The villagers gathered, their faces pale with shock, their eyes fixed on the glowing woman and the wounded farmer beside her. No one spoke, no one moved. Arjun stood with trembling legs, his hand gripping hers tightly. The woman looked at him, tears glowing on her silver cheeks. "You gave me freedom," she whispered. "You gave me reason to live." Arjun's chest swelled with pain and pride. He had no riches, no power, no weapons, But he had kept his promise. He had protected her. And in doing so, he had protected more than just one life. He had protected hope. The villagers bowed their heads in silence, not out of fear, but out of respect. They did not understand who she was, where she came from, or what war she carried in her heart. But they knew one thing: she was alive and she was free, and that freedom had been won by the courage of a poor farmer who chose kindness over fear. That night, as the storm faded and the stars returned, Arjun stood outside his broken hut, the woman beside him, her glowing eyes looking toward the sky. The hunt was not over. The enemy would return. But now they were no longer just farmer and stranger. They were family, bound by a bond that no storm could break. And together, they looked at the sky, not with fear but with strength. For their story was only beginning,